Hi, everybody. Welcome to Interfaith Friends, a ministry of Shepherd of the Lake Lutheran Church, where we value our neighbor's faith. We honor the sacred stories of our neighbors as we learn from one another and work together to foster a more just and peaceful world. So today I am joined by somebody who I think we share kind of the same sacred stories, right, John?
Definitely.
And so John, I'm here with John Holt today, and he is actually just like right across the hallway in his office, and I'm in my office. But John is our Children, Youth, and Family Director here at Shepherd of the Lake. And I've asked John to join me in a short conversation today about interfaith stuff, because he is part of a new venture that is really on the ground working to promote, to bring about a more just and peaceful world, right, with our interfaith partners. And so, John, I'm wondering if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
Yes, love to. I am Director of Children, Youth, and Family here at Shepherd of the Lake. I've been here about 4 years, work with amazing staff and colleagues, especially our Children, Youth, and Family team. And just a few months ago, I just received an opportunity to connect with other religious leaders who had started to gather to talk about some of the equity issues that were happening in this area. And so things that were happening in our high school and in our community where folks may not have felt safe, or folks in our BIPOC community may have felt disconnected, or even, some of our students feeling like they were mistreated. And so the conversation started with our local mayor connecting some religious leaders together to start a conversation about how can we start to break down barriers. And so I started in just a kind of informal luncheon that happened at a local restaurant here. And then we began this conversation kind of what next? What do we want to do? To begin the conversation of engaging people in this work, and then what do we want to do in this work? What's our purpose? So that's kind of where it began a couple of months ago.
Cool.
And yeah. And so as of today, we have a name and kind of a purpose statement. And so we are calling ourselves Interfaith Connect. And it is our tagline is connecting people through interfaith collaboration to create a more inclusive and loving community.
Cool. I love it. And so has your work primarily been focused on high school youth at this point then, or are you looking kind of more broadly at the whole community?
So that's a great question. So we're like in the infancy of this, right? Mm-hmm. Part of it right now is connecting folks to the conversation. So it's talking to a local mosque, it's talking to a local temple, it's talking to the LDS community, and trying to engage some folks that are either in leadership or interested in being kind of representative at the table to talk about, to begin the conversation about purpose, right? So. And that's really where we're at right now. We did attend an equity summit that our local educators put together that really focused on some of the same work. How can we make sure that we are working on inclusivity and equity in this community? And so they asked us to do some kind of small group discussions and include folks, in the community to have that conversation. So I think right now we're trying to figure out what is our purpose. How do we gather and really trying to build connections to other faith communities or religious groups.
That's awesome. So what is it within our sacred story, or your sacred stories then, that is the foundation for your work? Like, what is it about this story, your sacred stories that you're rooted in, that gives you the oh gosh, I don't know what the right word is, but like where you're like, yes, like let's get together with folks who have other sacred stories that where they've seen God, who have experienced God in ways that are not the same way that we experience God, right? And like do this thing together.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I've walked in a lot of spaces with folks that have felt disconnected from the church, felt disconnected from sacred stories, who have felt like maybe they didn't have a seat at the table. And I think for me, when you're walking alongside folks and you're saying, no, you have a place, you have a seat at the table, you have a creator who loves you, no matter what that expression is, no matter how that looks to you. I think that work is so much more powerful when many people are having those difficult, sometimes conversations. And so I think that's kind of a foundational thing for me. I think what really amplified my need to engage in this community was when my own high school daughter experienced racial microaggressions happening at her high school, and her friends and other kids of color, BIPOC community that were experiencing this. And when I happened to go to a rally they had at the high school, and I heard the voices of our young people speaking, our BIPOC young people speaking about what they'd experienced and how they want to be a part of this community. And they wanted to share their stories and hope that people would see them and hear them and care about them. And that's really at the forefront of that's the deep part of what my faith is all about, right? Is God's call to love God, love others, and to see each of these kids as amazing, beautiful child of God, perfect the way they are. So it kind of got activated. And I just said, we've got work to do in this community to make sure every kid feels like they have a place at the table.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that you're able to be part of this group of people who are like we're all rooted in our own traditions, right?
Yep.
Our traditions which all say like these, everyone has value and, inherent worth and dignity, right? Right. And so how do we like ground ourselves in our tradition and then work together with folks who may have different theology, different stories, different ways that they connect with God, different traditions, like, all of those kinds of things to just do the work that we feel called to do. And there's so much, we can do so much more, be so much more impactful together than if we were apart.
And what do we have in common, right?
Right.
So much we focus on the differences, on they this, they that. And one of the stories out of this that I love is that one of the two people that participate in this group are from the LDS Church, Latter-day Saints, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I got to know them, Jared, who's a bishop, and Jennifer, who kind of helps with the communications. Well, my daughter, Marin, who's a senior in high school, Prior Lake High School, she was talking about a friend of hers that I hadn't really heard her name, and she's got different pockets of friends, but her friend who she spoke of, well, her friend came over one day, and as her friend was coming in, I said, "Hey, good to meet you." And she said, my dad knows you. And I'm like, "Oh, no way. How did you, and listen, we work in a big church, a lot of folks I intersect with. And like, "Yeah, who's your dad?" "Oh, it's Jared." And I'm like, "What?" And so here it is. Her dad is on Interfaith Connect with me. That's and so he's cool. The LDS bishop. And so then from that, my daughter then went and did like a service project with them. And so that is that interconnection of relationship and community, and what I think the fabric should be all about. Yeah. I don't even know that for, a better part of a year, my kid's friend, is in connection with me through this work. And I didn't really even know that over the past few months. So I just think those are the things that can build from this, that we can, break down barriers and really get to know each other and be in community,
Yeah. I feel like those are the moments when like God's doing a happy dance,
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Because God connects with us the way that it makes sense to us and the way that it lines up with us, right? And then for us to root ourselves in that connection with God, whatever that looks like, and come together to do the work that we feel called to do, right? To work for justice and peace and inclusion and equity and ending hunger and all the things, right?
Yeah. I'm sure we have plenty of things we see differently theologically in our own traditions, and we probably have many things that we see the same. But in all of that, that doesn't have to be a barrier for community, nor is that what Jesus calls us to be, right? We don't have to say this barrier is this because we're different, or because you see your faith or your religion is different. We cannot be Christ community or community in general.
Right.
From our perspective, Christ community is y'all come now,
Right.
And that's the beauty of it, right? That those relationships can build and grow, and we can see each other as amazing, amazing child of God. So
I love it. And I think of I have turned into this person who's like, oh, I think of this scripture passage and this scripture passage, but like I love it, right? But I think of all these stories where Jesus is talking about telling parables about okay, actually these are the people who get it, and it's typically the people who are not who are not who are not like the in-group, right?
Yeah.
Actually, these people are the ones who get it, right? So, yeah. Anyway, I could go down a scriptural rabbit hole for the next hour and a half, at least, until I needed a break. But I really I want to thank you I want to honor time, right? And I want to thank you for the work that you do here in this place, and also the work that you do in the community, just the way that you show up in the world with just embodying grace. And I want to say thanks for that. And thank you for joining us here today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Pastor Laila.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And we will see you next month for another exciting episode of Interfaith Friends. Thanks.